For more updates, click on subscribe and click on bell button for latest notifications. Hi friends, welcome to techarkit YouTube channel. My name is Ravi. In this video session, we are going to see that 16 Linux interview questions and answers, which is used for Linux engineer interview questions and answers. So basically, this contains 17 questions. So let's see that what are those questions and answers. So the first one is there are three users, Ravi, Shekhar and Srikanth. You have to give access to FTP, telnet and SSH commands to Ravi user, only SSH to Shekhar user, only telnet to Srikanth user, and how will you configure this. So that is the question. So you can use this to configure using the sudo policy. Either you can edit this using the vi sudo edit, otherwise you can also use vi/etc/sudo policy. So that way you can use to configure the policies. So first of all, you have to define the command alias, which is a best practice. You can also directly provide the FTP path, the command path on the rule, but this is the best way to define first alias, then provide that path. So command alias is FTP and the command path is /bin/FTP. In similar way telnet alias and similar way SSH alias. So then the user Ravi has to provide the access to FTP, telnet, SSH. So this way the Ravi user can execute FTP, telnet and SSH commands without asking for the sudo password. The similar way, so Shekhar can only execute SSH and Srikanth can only execute telnet command, and save those command on the sudo policy, then exit from there, then log into the each and the individual user and verify that whether the proper commands are working or not. So the next question is, what is firewall? So the firewall is a network device or network security software in terms of if you're using the Linux. So it is a software which is not exactly a device that monitors incoming and outgoing network traffic and permits or blocks data packets based on a set of security rules, which means that set of firewall rules. Example, I allow only SSH service, or I only allow HTTP protocol, like that. So if you allow what are the protocols from the firewall, incoming outgoing traffic, then it only allow those. So except those rules, it will block the port traffic. So its purpose is to establish a barrier between your internal network and incoming traffic from external sources in order to block malicious traffic like viruses and hackers. So whenever the external traffic is coming inside to your system, so which will basically block and verifies the data packets, then allow to the system. So that is the one. So the next one is what is SELinux and what is the SELinux context. So the SELinux means security enhanced Linux is a security architecture for Linux systems that allows administrators to have more control over who can access the system. So basically you can there's a firewall, but the security Linux will provide more security in terms of file level security and port level security as well as the service level security. So this way, so whenever the service is started and firewall has the proper context and the traffic is allowed, then only the SELinux will allow to access those protocols. So it is originally developed by the NSA, so which is called as an United States National Security Agency, and a series of patches to the Linux kernel using the Linux security module. And what is context? Context is like processes and files are labeled with an SELinux context that contains additional information such as SELinux user, role, type, and optionally a level. So security level also can be specified on the context. When running SELinux, all of this information is used to make access control decisions. So whenever you make any of this, like role, user, type, or the level, then which is called as an ACL for that access. So next question is, if you have scheduled a task to be run at 2 p.m. but it has not been executed, what will you do? So which means that I have scheduled a cron job at 2 p.m. but it is not executed. So then what are the steps you will execute, or you will check for troubleshooting that why cron job is not executed? So the first one is check cron service is running or not. So cron D service should run always, otherwise whatever you schedule it won't run. And check cron tab entry as proper details. So if you have some spelling mistakes or improper information or the command name mistakes, all of this, so the cron job may execute, but which is not exactly the command which you would like to execute. Or so check the cron tab entry do not have any empty lines at the end, and check files or scripts permissions are executable. So whenever you are executing any files or scripts which is scheduled on the cron tab, should have executable permissions, proper executable permissions, otherwise it won't work. So always use full path while scheduling the scripts and programs. So example, you have created the file and you run the file from the command terminal which is executing fine. So you went to the cron tab and you just added that script name and the schedule, but the script is located where? So when you are executing from the cron tab, so it won't understand where the script is located. So you have to provide the exact full path to that script so that it will execute the exact file, otherwise it will fail. So the next one is cron logs. Verify the cron logs whether every executed cron entry will be added into that /var/log/cron file. You can verify that when it is executed with errors or not, all of the details. So the next question is, tell me boot process. If you press your server power button, then what happens? Immediately do a post in the sense power on self test. In the sense each component of the hardware, they will power on their own, in the sense they will test their own power, like okay, I'm able to switch on myself or not. Then what happens? Okay, if all the hardware says okay, I am ready to power on, then what happens? Whenever you press the power button, the post completes and immediately the BIOS program, basic input output system, will be loaded from the hardware, like all the details about the hardware and how many devices are connected, all the devices are functioning well or not, is there any errors, all the details will become over here about the hardware details. So BIOS will be loaded. The next one is that master boot record. So the master boot record is a very fast record on the hard disk, which is 512 in bytes. Say whenever first read comes to the MBR, says that okay, here is my MBR. The MBR will be located with the partition information, and where my OS partition is located, where is my boot related files will be located. The MBR will guide the system to go there and boot up with the OS process. After that, the grub will be loaded. The grub will be loaded like basically after the MBR. MBR says that okay, here is your slash partition, boot partition, and all the information about the partitions where they are located. After that, it finds the grub in that, and in grub what the grub will do is that initial ram fs, init ram fs, the files will be extracted into the initial phase as a temporary file system. Then the c/sysroot will be mounted as a read-only file system. Then it will verify all this related file system and kernel. Then after reading all these steps and kernel, when it's jumping into the kernel, then the hard disk process starts, and the kernel will be located and the kernel trying to load. That's where we will get the boot menu, like it is asking as for the RHCL 7 something like that you want to enter, like, or you press space bar to wait few seconds. There itself you can interrupt your kernel boot process, then you can reset the password or whatever you want. But if the grub password is there, then you have to enter the grub password and it enter into the kernel. If there is no grub password, it directly from the grub it directly goes to the kernel, and kernel will be loaded where your process gets started. First of all, the system D process gets started with the system fork call. The fork call will be executed, and first system, because the PID is generated in a round robin mechanism, the first PID for the system D is going to be process ID 1. That's where the system D will be started, the daemon of the system D will be started. Then it takes the entire services to load upon the which target you set as a default. Example, say the target is set as a GUI target, or maybe a CLI target, or maybe an emergency target, or whatever the target you set. If it is on a GUI or CLI, then its associated services will be started on the target one by one, and all the services status will be verified. If any fail is there, it will retry. Sometimes if it is not able to retry, then it will skip that one, as it keeps on a failed mode itself, and it goes to the next one. Then associated required services are started, then the system will be started. Next, the target is going to be load all the services. After that, if it is in a GUI enabled, then you will see in a GUI interface. If it is on a CLI enabled interface, then you can see in a CLI interface over there. That's how the boot process completes. Whenever you switch on your server, power on your server, post happens and BIOS will be loaded, and next time is the MBR will be loaded. It's located for the where is your partition information and grub information, all this stuff. Then the grub will be loaded as a initial RAM FS. Then the kernel is loaded into the multiple stages, like stage 1, stage 1.5, and stage 2. Then the kernel process completes, then it starts the processes from the system D. Then it loads associated target, enabled services on the targets will be started, and your actual servers will be loaded. That's about the boot process. The question 6 is, how will you install packages? So basically, how will you install the packages? So the packages, you can use the below commands to install the packages. One is yum install the package name. Example, here it is MySQL, and RPM -vh and the RPM name. And if it is an Ubuntu system, you can use apt-get install package name. So this way you can use to install the packages on the Red Hat Linux, CentOS Linux, and Ubuntu Linux, or Debian based distributions. These are the steps we are going to do actually for reducing your file system. First of all, shut down all your applications or the databases which are hosted on that LVM. Then complete the backup. Okay, in the sense, take complete backup of that LV. In case of any errors or in case of anything happens to that LV, you can restore the data back. And unmount the LVM file system. Then hash out the entry in file fs tab entry to unfortunate mounts or any mounts, okay, to prevent the mounting automatically. And these options, so what are the LV reduce procedure we are going to see in this session, it's only support for ext2 and ext3 and ext4 file systems, though there is no xfs file system support for this. Okay, you can reduce the xfs file system, but that needs to done with the different steps. Okay, and check for any errors, so which is going to be do on using the E2FSCK file system. So any block errors or any size errors which will be fix it before you do a reduce. Now we are going to see that which file system. So the file system is ext4 part, the mount point, and the ext4, this one we are going to reduce from 2 GB to 1 GB in size. Now I'm just going to do a fs tab entry over here and just comment this, and now unmount /ext4 part, and you can go ahead and see that there's no ext4 now, and you can just type mount-a for reconfirmation. Okay, there is no ext4 partition mounted back. Now just run e2fsck-f and go to /vg and lv path lv0, and now you can see that there is no errors found or there is no block issues, there is no size, this is all are fine. Now what we are going to do over here is that we are going to reduce the file system, which means that the first of all we do a resizing the file system, then reduce the actual LVM size. Okay, resize fs, okay, resize to fs, and provide your LV path, okay, LV0. I'm going to reduce up to 1 GB, right? So that why I'm going to give you 1 GB in size. If you want to reduce up to, in the sense, if your disk is 10 GB, then you would like to remove out of 8 GB from 8, then you have to do in reverse way. You have to do resize the file system to 2 GB, or if you want to only remove the 2 GB from 8, then you have to reduce your file system to 8 GB. So in this case I'm going to reduce to 1 GB, okay, the file system, because I want to remove 1 GB size from that partition. Okay, so do a resize of 1 GB. Now your file system has been reduced. Now you can reduce your LV reduce. Okay, I'm going to do a capital L and 1 GB size, okay, and which means that I'm just removing the 1 GB size from that partition, okay, and provide the path of /dv/vg0 and lv path. Okay, the partition is going to be reduced over here. Then your partition has been reduced to from 2 GB to 1 GB in size. Now you just go to /etc/fs tab entry and uncomment this mount line, then type mount -a. Now you can go ahead and see that the file system ext4 has been come to 1 GB in size. How will you extend LVM? So this is most asked question on the interview. Let's see it in practically. Let's go first of all with the ext4 file system, and we can go ahead and see that VGs, whether we have some free space on the existing VG or not. Okay, yes, we have free space, like we have 33.99 GB, almost 39 GB free space, sorry, 34 GB free space we have on that VG, and which are hosted. Okay, example say that PV display -m will give you the detailed information, sorry, I have to use sudo because so which will give you a details information how many physical extents are used and which physical extents are used from which way to where, all the details. Okay, you can see that over here the physical segments and the extents from 0 to 1024. Okay, and which 1023 is used for LV0 and 1024 to 1535 is used for LV1, and we have still some free extents from 1536 to 5118. So what is the reason behind the physical extents? The physical extents are the block sizes. Blocks actually those are extended. By default the physical extent size is 4 MB. You can increase or decrease the physical extends from 8 KB to 16 GB in size. Okay, while creating the PV you can specify the size of physical extent. Okay, so what does that mean? So which means that the disk which you have created nearby a 200 GB of PV, that is divided into the multiple small pieces like 4 MB 4 MB 4 MB. So if you in the sense if you multiply your values, okay, 4 MB into 5119, then your actual PV size will come. So that is called a physical extents or the logical extents, which means that the logical volume also have its logical extents. So how the logical extent, you can see that over here it is the sudo LV display, and you can provide the logical volume details over here. You can see that the logical extents 1024 logical extents are there. So the same one, the PE size or the logical sizes is almost the same, because actually the LEs logical extents are divided from the physical extents, or which are came from the physical extents. So we can indirectly call logical extents or the physical extents are almost same. Okay, so I'm just switching back to the root account over here to do all the our extend operation. Okay, here what we are going to do already is that we have already a LVs. So we have LV0 and LV1. So one is an XFS partition and one is a ext4 partition. So I'm going to extend ext4 partition over here. So you can see which one is ext4. So this is an XFS partition, LV1 is an ext4, and VG0 is an ext4 partition over here. Okay, to do that what we have to do, simply method is that in this operation what happens whenever you do a extend or extending the LVMs. Okay, so here example I have the hard drive, right, hard drive. In this I have made up to here a, so this is example, say that VG, your VG. Okay, so your VG is there over here, in this case VG0 over here, and this is your LV0. Okay, so you have file system on this. Now this file system is example say 2 GB in size. So I would like to extend this one. So the first whatever the options we are going to do over here, it is done for the extending. What we do here, it is that in this is the free space from the VG, right, free space. So this free space what we are going to do here, it is that we are going to add whatever the slice we would like to add to the VG. Example say from 2 GB plus 1 GB, okay, which is going to be a 3 GB in size. Now your logical volume is extended from 2 GB to 3 GB, but what happens here, it is that whatever the file system you have until the 2 GB is not going to be extend whenever you extend the logical volume. What we have to do over here, it is that we have to extend the file system as well. Whatever the file system is there on the existing disk or the existing logical volume, we have to extend over here. To do that we will do a resize fs, which means that resize the file system to the entire whatever the disk you have added to the logical volume, so that now it becomes a logical volume with file system, so that these partitions extend you can use for your future storing your files and directories, all this stuff. So this is about the logic how we are going to do a extend on the LVM extend. So let's see how you can do that. So first of all, I have verified the VG. I have some space and I verified the LVs. Okay, the LV0 I'm going to extend. Now what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to add some space. Okay, LV extend. Okay, before that let's going to see that what is our LV0 size over here. It is around 4 GB with ext4 partition, right? ext4 file system. Now LV extend, and I'm going to add some space here. No need to specify any VG details over here because it directly pick the space from the VG itself, because the LV is already reside on the VG. Now I'm just going to add one more GB to over here, plus 1 GB. So you should be known that capital L I'm using over here, not small l. Okay, there is a difference between, so that's why you have to make sure capital L or small l, and provide the device path, so which is the VG0 and LV0. Now enter. What happens here is that now the VG0 LV0 has been extended from 4 GB to 5 GB, which means that from 1024 extends to it extended to 1280 extends. Now logical volume is successfully resets. Okay, now if you go to df-h and see that ext4 partition, what is the size? Okay, 3.9 GB and 3.9 GB. Where is this 1 GB went? Okay, because what happens, as I explained you in a previous just now. Okay, LV0. So LV0 size is 5 GB, but what it is showing over there, it's only 4 GB. So what happens to that remaining 1 GB? So the remaining 1 GB is added to the your existing LV, but that LV extended space is not have any file system. So what you have to do now, you have to resize your file system. Means you have to make the file system in that existing LV, that extended part, so that your file system will come in use. Okay, to do that, resize to fs and provide the path /dv vg0 and lv0. Enter. What happens now? Your online resizing got completed successfully. Your blocks are extended, which means that your size has been, the remaining size has been formatted with the file system. Now you can see the space. So LV0, it's went to 4.8 GB in size. Which files have SUID by default? What is SUID? So SUID is a special type of file permissions given to a file. Normally in Linux, when a program runs, it inherits access permissions from the logged in user. SUID is defined as given temporary permissions to a user to run a program or file with permissions of the owner rather than the user who runs it. So basically SUID is used to run the file which runs with the owner permissions. Example, the owner is root, but you logged in as some other user. Whenever you run the file, which runs as a root, not as a normal user, so that is called as an SUID. So basically default file SUID is that not /etc, it's a password file. The password file will have the SUID permissions, because whenever the user wanted to change his permissions, so that will execute as a the user's permissions, or by default the /etc password file, not password file. Basically it has the password command. Tell me about log management. So log management is nothing but whenever the system is accessed by something, or the services are started, restarted, all of these commands and services will log their activity into the log files. So what you have to do, so in order to reduce the file storage usage, like example, whenever your system has been restarted, it creates a lot of logs. Whenever you execute the commands, it will create the logs. So whenever cron job runs, it creates the logs. So whenever there is some error on the system, it creates the logs. But the logs are keep on increasing, then your storage usage will go high. So in order to manage those logs, so what type of information you should store into the log files, and when the log file should delete, and how many log files you would like to keep on the system. So this is example like a log rotate process. You have to use it, or you have to configure the log priority, like which logs should be logged into log files, like information, errors, warnings, or high level critical messages, or whatever it is you wanted to log in. So that is called as a log management. So next question is, if a server is not able to SSH to it from a client actually, then how will you troubleshoot? So when the SSH client is not able to access the server using the SSH, so what is the troubleshooting steps you will take? So the first one is ping to the server from the client to verify that whether you have any reachability, which means that you have a proper network connectivity, which means that the server is reachable from the client. So next one is check the SSH service is running on the server. The next one is check firewall rules if you have on the server side, whether SSH port is allowed or not. That is called 22. Check user is in appropriate SSH group. So some of the organizations use SSH groups to allow the user. So if you are the user who accessing the SSH, the user should into the appropriate group to access the SSH. The next one is verify the port is listening or not, using the, if it is an RHL7 and RHL8, you can use sh-tl NAUP is a command, or if it is an HCL5 or 6, you can use netstart-al and tup to verify whether the port number 22 is listening or not. So explain the process states, how many process states are there, what they do. Whenever you list the process states, whenever you list the process, how you'll understand whether the process is running or interrupted, sleeps, jumpy process, all of this stuff. So first one is the D state, which means that uninterruptible sleep. So usually the IO is sleeping. I, the indication is idle kernel thread. So R, which means that running processes or runnable processes are in the queue. So S means interruptible sleep, so waiting for an event to complete. Process T stores stopped by the job control signal. T means stopped by debugger during the tracing. So like if you use strace or something like which you stopped it, then which come into the T. And W, capital W is paging file, but if the kernel is more than 2.6.xx, then this paging may not be shown in that operating system. X is died process, so which means that the diary process most of the times you won't see in the process list, but whenever it is dying you may see that, but if it is died you won't see that in the process list. But this process most times you will see in the JED, which is called as a defunct or the zombie process, terminated, but it is not reported by its parent. So which means that which is died but it's still on the process list, which is the impact. If it is more zombie processes, then the Linux system performance will go down. So tell me about top and ps commands. So basically ps command is used to report a snapshot of the current running processes, and top is continuously display the Linux processes by refreshing every time, so which are almost similar output, but ps can show only the current snapshot which is not refreshed, but top will show this similar system usage but it will refresh automatically. And how will you check the dependencies of the package? So example, I wanted to install particular package, so how will you check before installing that package what are the dependencies are there? So you can use yum dep list and package name, so it will list out all the dependence packages which needs to be installed. So what is DNS? So DNS is domain naming system used to convert your IP address to the DNS name or DNS name to IP address, which will helpful in example if you ping the domain name, which will give you the IP address, if you ping the IP address, which will give you the name. So in that way you can use ns lookup or dig command to verify the DNS records. So what is DHCP? So DHCP is a dynamic host configuration protocol, is a network management protocol used on internet protocol networks, whereby DHCP server, so which uses the dynamically assigning the IP address to the multiple clients, so which is basically easy for us to manage the IPs. So whenever there is a client is there, so if you are having the more clients, example like 300 to 400 clients, then you wanted to assign the IP address to each and every system manually. So sometimes the IPs may conflict whenever the systems has been rebooted, something like that. So you won't remember exactly which IP you have provided to which client, all of this stuff. So you no need to remember all of these processes and everything. You just set up on a DHCP server which will automatically dynamically assign whenever the client is up, then it will request for an IP address, they will get the IP address. So the next one, last question is difference between RPM and M. So the basically RPM and M both are used for installing the packages in RHEL and CentOS. However, so the RPM can only be used for installing the single package at a time without any dependencies. So the RPM will install a package without any dependencies, but yum will install along with its dependencies. So that's what about this question and answers. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Please subscribe to the channel for more upcoming videos and courses. If you attend any of the interviews or you have some questions, then you can post me on the WhatsApp so that I will make questions and answers for you.